Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Let's get the mics set here. Sorry about that. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. As you are aware, this is an actual business meeting. It is not going to be a work session this evening. So we have a quorum, and we will ask Mr. Majors if he would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Majors. All right, we will start with announcements, and we'll start with Dr. Gentry.
No.
No announcements? All right, Dr. Brandon's not here. Ms. Spearing?
Yes, thank you. All right, Dr. Ron Woodard is the executive principal at Maplewood High School, and he's been in this position for 3 years. And his goal when he took the position was to bring a person of celebrity to Maplewood High School. And that dream came to fruition on June 13th when Soledad O'Brien talked with parents, students, administrators, and elected officials from across the city on overcoming adversity to beat the odds. Soledad understands adversity. She was one of 6 children born to an interracial couple who fell in love in 1958. Interracial marriages did not become legal until 1967, but all of the O'Brien children attended Harvard University. The takeaway from this chat for me with Miss O'Brien was that she encouraged the students to set a goal, and when you fail, and you do fail, we all fall, when you fail, pick yourself up, ask questions, and proceed. And I thought that was good information and a good opportunity to learn from a more knowledgeable other. None of us are without failure, and the O'Briens were good at taking criticism and learning from their mistakes. So it was time well spent. I had the opportunity to attend the Professional Educators of Tennessee forum where they talked about high-stakes testing. And Dr. Jill Pittman was also on this panel from Goodlettsville Middle. And we all gave our various opinions, and then we listened to the teachers from across the state. It was very energetic and very passionate. Our district has recently promoted 2 principals from District 3. Patty Yon at Dan Mills will serve as lead principal, and Antoinette Williams from Graymar will serve as executive officer for middle schools, and congratulations to both of these principals. I want to express my sincere sympathy to the family of Barry Potts on the passing of his wife, Dr. Betsy Potts, who lost her battle against leukemia. Betsy was the principal at Old Center, and she was a previous assistant principal at Amqui Elementary. She was a longtime student, teacher, and administrator at Good Pasture. Also, I just learned that yesterday, Dr. Sue Kessler from Hunters Lane lost her mom. Her mom's name is Alina Marie Stone, after just a brief illness. Her memorial service will take place tomorrow afternoon. Again, my sincere sympathies to Sue Kessler and her family and the Potts family. This concludes my announcements.
Thank you. Ms. Kim? Ms. Shepard?
Just have a couple. Shout out to the Walmart in Hermitage. They're a new chamber member for the Donaldson Hermitage Chamber of Commerce, and this month they donated $500 worth of standard school attire to McGavock Elementary, and their goal is to do that several months in a row right here before school starts, so that those children who are the neediest have what they need for school every day. So thank you to them. And then just this afternoon, Dr. Steele and I were at a Music Makes Us meeting, and that this organization is just doing so much good for the children in our school, in and around the arts. They presented their budget for the year that we're just completing, and their goal was to have a $1.2 million budget, and they actually surpassed that. They had a $1.3 million budget, which allows for the expansion of visual and performing arts in our school. So I do thank everyone on that, in that committee, in that board, for all their hard work for our students in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pinkston?
Thank you. Two things. First, I want to thank Dr. Register, Fred Carr, Spencer Young, and the entire food services team for the gift that they gave Metro Nashville public students earlier this month with our shift to Universal Meals program. Under the new community eligibility provision, which is an initiative of President Obama and the Congress, Nashville is now going to join a growing number of large urban school systems providing free breakfast, free lunch to every child. That means thousands of students who currently are not participating in meals will have the ability to do so. It's a way to address child hunger, to reduce social stigma and associated with free and reduced price lunch meals, and I think the entire district is going to be better for it. So thank you, management, for making this really, really important shift. The only other thing I wanted to mention is on Friday I had the opportunity, along with Ms. Shepard and Ms. Frogue, to attend the Tennessee School Boards Association seminar entitled Advocacy for Children. On the drive home from West Tennessee, I started thinking about what advocacy for children really means. Advocacy in the halls of the legislature, with the mayor and the council, advocacy in the media, but I think it also fundamentally begins at home. In our case, in the boardroom, it means recognizing successes that are happening and also talking honestly about the very real challenges that exist. I was taken aback this month when I saw some preliminary data on our end-of-course exams in our high schools this year. I know we're still waiting on final results from the state, but in the spirit of advocacy for children, I'd like to propose that we carve out some dedicated time in the near future. Ms. Spearing, maybe a uniquely focused teaching and learning committee meeting to dig into the end-of-course data from this year, as well as this year's TCAP data as soon as it's available. It's clear, looking at the preliminary results, that we have some very real, significant, and persistent literacy gaps. I'd like to hear what the very specific and high-leverage interventions that are being considered to ensure that all kids are able to read and write. These are difficult conversations. I think we're obligated to have them, and I'm optimistic that we'll improve if we can focus in the committee system and in the boardroom about what the future looks like in the school system. Thank you.
Mr. Hayes? Ms. Frogue? All right, and I just have a couple of announcements. July 2nd at 6 p.m. at Lakeview Elementary, there will be another meeting on the zoning for the new elementary school that will be in Antioch on Smith Springs Road. So please make plans to attend that meeting. Also, you may have noticed that we have a young lady standing over next to the podium. This is Miss Gina Martell. She's an interpreter tonight, and she will be interpreting for some of the audience members. So be kind. And those are all the announcements. And you might have noticed on your agenda that we have an awards and recognition item, but we will not have that this evening. We will move that to our next business meeting. So with that, we will go into governance governance. Ms. Shepard.
The consent agenda is as follows. 1A, recommended approval of change order number 1 for Hume Fogg Magnet School Gymnasium Addition, D.F. Chase, Inc. B, recommended approval of change order number 4, Rose Park Middle School renovations, Meso Construction Company. C, recommended approval of request number 9 for district-wide maintenance, repairs, and general construction, restroom additions and renovations at Bordeaux Pre-K Center, Southland Constructors, LLC. D, recommended approval of request number 10 for district-wide maintenance, repairs, and general construction, restroom additions and renovations at Ross Pre-K Center, Southland Constructors, Inc. E, recommended approval of request number 5 for district-wide maintenance, repairs, and general construction, security vestibule and interior renovations at Johnson ALC, Carrie G. Campbell, Inc. F, recommended approval of supplement number 1 for John Early Middle School additions, Moody Nolan, Inc. G, awarding of contracts and purchases, 1, CDW Government, Inc., 2, OL, Inc. H, District Calendar 2015-16. I, Fiscal Year 2013-14 Operating Budget Amendment Number 2. J, Fiscal Year 2014-2015 Nutrition Services Fund Budget. K, approval of the 2014-15 Student Code of Conduct text, and L, textbook approval, Introduction to Teaching, Becoming a Professional. Madam Chair, I recommend that we approve the consent It's read.
Hello.
Wednesday.
Is there a second?
Agenda is read.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and properly second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And now we will move into the reason we're here, a charter school motion. And Dr. Register, I will pass this over to you.
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Coverstone to come to the podium and to present his committee's work and recommendations in detail.
You have this also to follow along if you'd like. While it's coming up, I want to thank you all for letting me do this job. This is the best job I've ever had. And I want to thank Dr. Register for his foresight 5 years ago to think about keeping quality at the heart of what we do with our charter schools, and the previous board members, as well as those still on the board, Chamber, the Mayor's Office, operators of charter schools who made collaboration the centerpiece of our mission for high-performing schools for everybody. That's really why I'm here tonight. And in the 5 years since we started the Charter Schools Office, we've received 53 applications for charter schools. We've recommended denial of 28. Without that work, most of these 53 would probably be operating toward failure right now. Schools are not good or bad because they're charters. It is their performance in providing excellent educational opportunity for students that matters. And our ability to raise the bar on quality is evident in the performance of our existing charter school portfolio and in the recommendations that we bring to you tonight. All of tonight's recommendations represent expansion or replication of high-performing schools and organizations. And that's a great place to be as a city, and you have done hard work to help get us there. But we couldn't have kept the standards high and rising without the support of NACSA or the work of Carol Swan and her review teams. Without their consistent commitment to high-performing schools, those 28 other charter schools might well be up and running in Nashville, and the performance of our charters might look more like the mixed bag you see in other cities. I'd like to be able to set aside the school type for tonight. Our work and our proposal are about bringing you real dollar investments that should be judged according to their quality. You've enabled us to focus our efforts by articulating the needs that you see fiscal capacity to support in the resolution you adopted last November. Now, we're recommending 2 schools today to address overcrowding and the rapid growth in our city, 1 school to complete a management conversion and improve performance in a low-performing school, and 2 high school pathways for the students and families of 2 great middle schools that are performing well and serving families in our high-growth areas. Our recommendation is that you approve these schools because they will be great schools that meet our articulated fiscal needs, not because they're charters. We always keep our strategic vision front and center, and I want to do that again tonight. Our recommendations tonight reflect investments that support this vision. This is our vision. Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools will provide every student with the foundation of knowledge, skills, and character necessary to excel in higher education, work, and life. We embrace and value a diverse student population and community. Different perspectives and backgrounds form the cornerstone of our strong public education system. Until we realize that vision for every student, we still have work to do. Our work is ingrained in the goals of Education 2018, and our charter partners are included within the strategic work of Education 2018. These are our commitments there. Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools will transform all schools into high-performing schools that demonstrate excellence through the academic, social, and emotional success of every student. Every graduate will be prepared for college and career. Now, the resolution and subsequent call for proposals asks us to do several specific things in our recommendation, and we'll try to do all of those to your recommendations tonight. First, you asked us to consider needs that you believe to have a positive fiscal impact. That is to say, needs that will have to be met through investment, either by new money associated with the rapid growth of Nashville or by shifting resources from low-performing schools to higher performers or more effective programming. Much in the way that you have done with Ross and Bordeaux already this year, and much in the way that we have done with Drexel and Boys Prep. Second, you asked us to honor the choices and commitments of families at high-performing middle schools who wish to continue their education in high school grades operated by the same high-performing schools and organizations. And finally, you ask us to consider the fiscal impact of the recommended investments and develop a fiscal capacity model to demonstrate the ability to afford new investments. Now, this slide shows a very rough high-side estimate of the transfers that we're proposing tonight. I've broken out the conversion proposal at the bottom from the rest because it's easier to see the offsetting costs associated with that part of the proposal. Now, hopefully you can see this clearly on the agenda handout that you have. But that is to say that the $4.5 million that you see in the total recurring expenses next to KIP on the second line from the bottom would be spent in the same building on the same students, whether we use it to fund current operations or whether we shift it to a new manager. You recognize this offset in your resolution and articulated management conversion as a way to use charters to meet specific needs for high-quality school transformation by shifting expenses to stronger management. The other four, totaling approximately $8.9 million in 2015-16 and about $23 million on the high side when all schools are fully enrolled, are all located in high-growth areas where schools are already overcrowded. Again, most of the students who will enroll in these schools would have to be covered with new revenue anyway. But by making the investments we're proposing, we believe we can reduce overcrowding in portables without making large independent capital investments on top of that to build new schools. And I'd like to bear in mind that even the high side, 23 and 27 million, represents approximately 2.5% of the budget that we will have that year to serve an additional 2.5% of our student population. Now, fiscal capacity cannot really be determined without first determining expected revenue growth. That is the source of our capacity, and we don't control our revenue. However, even though we do not control our revenue, we cannot wait until each budget year to make the kind of investments that will be required to serve a rapidly growing population effectively. We need to plan effectively to serve all the students who will come to our city, and we need to plan to serve them with the very best possible educational opportunities if our education system is to continue to support that growth. So responsible long-term planning in a growing city requires us to plan and commit to be ready to serve the new students we will welcome to Nashville with at least the same resources as we are serving our students currently. That assumption represents a no-cuts budget. Now you can see here that simply serving the projected number of students, new students, that we will welcome to Nashville with at least the same resources as we are serving students with currently, our 2015-16 budget will increase by at least $8.9 million, a very conservative estimate. You can see that the minimum annual increases we will need to cover projected student growth also are roughly equivalent to the investments that we're recommending for you today. Planning responsibly means building the school capacity to serve that growth. If you look at the 4 schools proposed to serve students in our high-growth areas, you can see across the bottom that the minimum required increases in the no-cuts budget are sufficient in each of those years to cover the costs proposed this evening. Even without calculating savings that might be associated with reduced overcrowding in existing schools and our ability to forego the construction of more expensive capital to build new schools, we believe that the proposed schools represent a wise investment that we not only have the fiscal capacity to afford, but also have the strategic responsibility to do now. Represented graphically, the proposed, if all we receive in the new revenue is the money to serve the new students who are going to be enrolling in Nashville's public schools with at least the same resources as we serve our current students, we will have the fiscal capacity to make investments that are proposed here tonight. And we want to offer world-class schools like Hume Fogg, MLK, Meigs, Laughlin, Head, Dan Mills, Glendale, Hillsborough, and so on for every student in Nashville, regardless of zip code. The least we can do as our population grows is to make sure we don't ask our current students to do with less in order to pay for the new students who are coming. Likewise, I don't believe we'll long remain the it city if we ask our new students to do with less than the students we currently serve. And so the no-cuts budget is an important goal for our city as it grows. However, surprises happen. And while we have to invest now if we're going to be ready to serve our growing population in 5 years, Some may argue that even this basic level of revenue growth is not assured. In our model, there are two possibilities. A, we will realize revenue growth equal to or greater than our student growth. New students will be funded at or above funding levels that current students enjoy, and we'll have the resources we need to absorb the proposed investments here tonight. Or B, we will have to adapt to a budget that cuts per pupil expenditures below current levels. Now, in the first scenario, we have enough money. In the second scenario, should unforeseen cuts come, the proposed cuts should fall more heavily on schools and programs that are not performing as well. The best predictor of future performance is past performance, and any investor would make the investment in these 5 schools because of the quality of the review process and the fact that these schools are all expansions of proven and highly effective school models and organizations. Even if cuts do come, you'll want to make and maintain these investments because of their high quality, and make your cuts by co-locating schools to offload utility costs, streamlining and selling services to schools, shifting more resources to schools, and if necessary, replacing or consolidating low performers according to the established academic framework that we have been using to do exactly that with our charter portfolio. Now, all of that modeling is on the conservative high side with absolutely no inclusion of the many positive returns that will reduce costs and improve outcomes. For example, tonight's proposal will save large expenditures associated with overcrowding and growth by reducing currently identified overcrowding in Southeast Nashville. It will enable us to serve an additional 2,400 students with no required capital investment. Those are distributed across the tiers, 900 in high school, 475 in middle school, and 1,025 in elementary school, numbers which would surely necessitate new construction. Even though we're recommending 2 new elementary schools in the Glencliff cluster, our projected seat shortage will still be greater than 600 seats in 2017-18. Doing nothing means we would need to find over 1,600 seats in the next 4 years. The return on investment in management conversion is potentially great as well. Even though we'll serve the same students whether we maintain our current management structure or convert the school. Specifically, we know that school turnaround work requires time to plan, design, and build teams, establishing systems that improve culture and achievement so that those improvements begin right away. Investing in this pre-work costs money, even though the return is great. And the importance of hiring a school leader a year in advance to design, plan, recruit a team, and get to know families is widely recognized in turnaround work. When we do turnaround work, we bear that cost. When the charter does that work, we don't pay anything for the planning and design year that often lasts almost 2 years of vital work. And when we do it, we gain a partner to help us with community relations in the process. We can certainly benefit from approving 1 school to do this work. We anticipate as many as 7 to 15 schools could be identified on the state's priority list when it's released later this fall, and there will be plenty of more work to do. Having 1 excellent school leader and a well-established partner in our corner can only pay dividends for our students. Last thing you asked us to do in the resolution was you asked us to make our process more deliberate and clear, and we've tried to do that. You've seen this clear demonstration, demarcation of our evaluation process several times since November, but here it is once more. Applications that do not demonstrate the organizational capacity or ability to deliver on plans and run a first-rate, sustainable, and efficient organization are recommended for denial at that stage. We are recommending 3 applicants for denial tonight. All applicants denied on the first round will receive official notification of your actions tomorrow, along with a copy of the recommendation report, which is also posted on our website. Applicants denied tonight have the legal opportunity to revise and resubmit their application within 30 days, which the period of which terminates on Thursday, July 24th. And we will then have 30 more days by law to review the resubmissions and make recommendations, which we would like to bring to this board on August 19th. According to the law, 4913-108A3, if we go beyond the 30 days without action, the schools will be deemed approved without our action. In the past 5 years, 15 applicants have resubmitted, and only 4 of those have led to subsequent approval in the second round. All right, following the order on the agenda, I would like to begin with the recommended denials.
Mr. Coverstone, before you go into your recommendations, Mr. Pinkston has asked to provide a little bit more information regarding budget, so if you will allow him to do that, then we can get into your recommendations. Mr. Pinkston.
Thank you. So I thought before we dive into approvals and denials, I thought maybe we could pause for a minute and talk about the fiscal implications of what we're getting ready to do. We're basically being asked tonight to make, if I'm reading your slide correctly, $27 million worth of spending decisions a year before we really know what our revenue picture is going to look like. Now, some of those costs are, as you pointed out, cost neutral or nominal costs, but some of them are very real costs. So I thought it might be important just to step back. We didn't get those numbers until about 2.5 hours ago, which I think was pretty late delivery. I think two things here. First, as I said, we're being asked to make decisions right now that impact the FY 2015-16 operating budget nearly a year before we know what our revenue picture looks like. That is a flaw in state law, which we're obviously not going to be able to fix. But the second really is in our control, which is doing some proactive fiscal analysis. So it feels like we're being asked to rubber stamp some decisions with just today getting information about what this stuff costs. These are not small numbers. In the future, I just want to ask that whether we can get this information concurrent with the charter recommendations, and then frankly, we need to get the charter recommendations sooner than we've been receiving them. And I believe we need to build time on the calendar to integrate this work into the budget committee so we're not talking about these things in a disconnected way. Now, not knowing what fiscal information we were going to be able to get, I went ahead as budget chair and did my own analysis. I passed around some documents around the table. The first one is a new rule that's being promulgated by the State Board of Education on the heels of the new charter authorizer law that may overturn our decisions tonight or in the future. This rule includes language highlighted on page 2 that references negative fiscal impact. The language aligns with state law, which encourages local education agencies to consider fiscal impact in our decisions. So, and specifically, the language in the rule that's being promulgated says if the LEA, that's us, denial is based on substantial negative fiscal impact, the state board shall consider the financial impact of the charter on the LEA. So that's one document. The second document, which is the bigger one, is a color-coded spreadsheet. Since we let the development of the fiscal capacity model get away from us this year, I thought the next best thing might be an at-a-glance fiscal analysis. My independent estimates came pretty close to what Dr. Coverstone is estimating. As a matter of fact, mine were a little bit more conservative. I'll just reiterate that we're being asked again to approve tonight, a year before we know what revenue looks like, more than $10 million in new cash outlays for 2015-16, which will eventually escalate to more than $27 million. And again, this is on top of the $50 million that we're currently spending on cash outlays for existing charters, which are still expanding in terms of both seats and costs. So we have not talked about that tonight. In addition to cash outlays, you'll see on the spreadsheet whether or not the applications comply with the resolution that we passed establishing strategic priorities. And I do want to take a minute and point out all of the 5 that Dr. Coverstone is recommending, with the exception of one, in my opinion, complies with the resolution to a T. And the one that doesn't comply at least tries really hard to come close. So I just want to take a minute and point out that what we did is working. Despite all the outcry and all the controversy, the market is responding for the first time to the district's stated needs. And unlike the Tennessee Charter School Center and its ilk, it's clear that there are some operators who actually do want to partner with the district. And to those, I'd like to say thank you. On the spreadsheet, you'll see a green, yellow, red fiscal rating key that gives us a slightly different way of looking at fiscal impact. Green is for conversion, as Dr. Coverstone pointed out, nominal costs, the resources are already there. So I would say let's move forward if there's a quality proposal. Yellow is for new capacity that we need in overcrowded areas. I would say proceed with caution, but these are seats we'd have to add anyway to relieve overcrowding. And red is for new capacity that we haven't articulated that we need. But just because something is in red, I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't approve it. I think it's just important to acknowledge that those are seats we would not ordinarily be bringing online. And finally, the third document, which I'm passing around, is a one-pager projecting ahead to our budget in 2015-16, the years that these schools would come online. And I just want to, again, point out that the decisions we're making now are going to affect our budget planning 9 months from now. So we've got a very serious fiscal cliff in front of us. If we're fortunate enough in 2015-16 to get $30 million or so in total new revenue, which is unlikely given the last couple of budget cycles we've been through, then we're still in a position of having to use $22 million of that to plug the looming hole that's been caused by matching non-recurring revenue to recurring expenditures. So our actual new available revenue could be more in the range of 10 million or so, which is less than what we're estimating these new schools could cost, not would cost, but could cost. And again, we're still going to have to find millions more dollars to fund ongoing growth in existing charter schools, which leaves very little, if any, for the rest of the school system. And I'm honestly not sure where all this leaves us. I just think the fiscally responsible thing to do is not just look at these applications and their price tags, but also forecast ahead so we can see how these expenses could impact a budget that's a year out into the future. And looking ahead, I just think we have to find a better way to integrate this process into our budget planning and strategic planning so all oars are rowing in the same direction, or we're just going to keep going through the same set of difficult conversations. So that's all I wanted to say. Just throw some fiscal flags on the field, Madam Chair, and thank you for the time.
And Mr. Coverstone, before we move ahead, do any board members have a question about the process of the approvals or denials that are before us tonight? You're on. I don't see any questions.
I appreciate Mr. Pinkston's observations. Certainly think we need to be smart, and that's why I've gone to the length that I have. I would just point out that the number of seats that are going to come online is clearly greater than the number of seats that we're asking for here. The question is whether we make those investments in charter operators or in other operators, and that's what this particular part of the model shows. So I just want to make sure we underscore that.
However, those are not. It's not like, if you go back to that slide, please. Yeah. So we need 970 seats, and 979 seats, and 980 of them are proposed in these charter applications. It's not like all of those 980 seats are going to fill the needed 979. I mean, it will help, but it's not an apple-to-apples comparison, I would just point out.
Yeah, I was just pointing out that it's not true that these seats won't come online. These are the numbers we're dealing with. All right. The recommended denials are first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes has a question before you get started.
Quick question. Can you go back to the slide for student enrollment growth projections? So just to be clear, the 979, 858, 604, that's district-wide projected growth. Do we know when that was last updated?
I asked Ryan to send me the most recent updated this week just to make sure I had that, but I don't know.
We're projecting around 2,000 for 14-15 and a drop in 15-16?
In the rate of growth. No, not a drop.
A drop of projected new students.
Sorry.
So this year, we're projecting 2,000 new students would come in the 14-15 calendar year. Last year, it was
a slower rate of growth.
A slower rate of growth.
That's what it appears, but I didn't do those projections.
That just, to the extent we're talking about long-range planning, and we've talked about it around community engagement, we've talked about it in other places, I've been trying to sound this alarm for quite some time. I can't say I have a tremendous amount of faith and confidence in those numbers. They seem incredibly low. Back to the IT-City comment you made earlier, back to the positive net migration that Nashville Next, that the planning department, that everyone is talking about that we're going to see here, that rate at 604 3 years from now is lower than it's been in my tenure on the board. As we've discussed this physical capacity model with MGT, in my discussions with them, the cohort survival model to project student enrollment growth they believed was fundamentally flawed, and that we should, as a district, look more towards demographic data, census tract, and block group data to project student enrollment growth. I would encourage this board and the administration to continue to work to refine those numbers, and just want to state out loud that, to me, as someone who in my day job tracks demographics and growth, the notion of only adding 604 kids 3 years from now is really hard for me to believe. I think that we will, personally, based on, again, my day job, I think we're going to see quite a bit more kids coming in. Not a declining student enrollment, but one that has accelerated as it has over the last 3 years. So as we think about long-term planning and the need to do that, it seems adding seats and planning to add seats is a good thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My goal here was to take the most conservative possible revenue estimates against the most expansive projections with no savings for offsets and determine whether we had the fiscal capacity to absorb the schools.
Any other comments before we proceed? Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Dr. Coverstone?
Procedural note here, just because appeals and so on. The law requires the board to rule by resolution on each application, stating the objective reasons for denial. So I recommend that you take each application one by one, as we've done in the past, and resolve clearly in your motion the language of your intention to approve or deny, and clearly incorporate the entire recommendation report as a foundation for your objective reasons, because we'll have to use those on appeal. All right? So I'll be brief. You have the reports, and we can talk it as you like. The first school is the International Academy of Excellence. It's a proposed K through 4 school, 700 students at full enrollment, which happens in 2020. The review team did not find the application to meet standards in any of the review categories. You see that on this slide. You have that in the report. Educational, operational, or business plans, as well as overall organizational capacity, fell short. The established standard for approval requires that the application be rated as meeting or exceeding standards in all 4 categories in order to advance for further consideration. The review team's recommended objective reasons for denial are detailed in the recommendation report. You've had some time to review, and we recommend that you rule by resolution to deny this application on the basis of this meeting and the review included in the full recommendation report.
Is there a motion to deny the approval of International Academy of Excellence,
I move that we deny
the charter application?
the charter application.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
We're clear, would the proper motion be to approve the recommendation of the
Approve the
committee
recommendation.
to deny?
You are correct. We'll kick that one off the table.
So move to approve the recommendation of the Charter Committee to deny the application of the International Academy of Excellence
You want me to read as
per
suggested?
yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I just need a jumping off point to get back to the recommendation report if we have to go to appeal.
Per the Charter School Recommendation Report, which includes the fact that the educational plan, organizational plan, business plan, and evidence of capacity does not meet our requirements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
All right, this will sound a little more familiar. The next school recommended for denial tonight is Strive Prep. It's a proposed 5 through 8 school with 480 students at full enrollment, which would happen in 2018. Here, the review team found that the application only partially meets standards in its educational plan and its business plan and does not meet standards in the operational plan or overall organizational capacity. The established standard for approval requires that the application be rated as meeting or exceeding standards in all 4 categories to advance for further consideration. So the review team's recommended objective reasons for denial are detailed in the recommendation report you have had to review, and we recommend you rule by resolution to deny this application on the basis of this meeting and the review included in the full recommendation report.
Is there a motion? Yeah, go ahead, Michael. You're on a roll.
I hereby move that the board accept the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee to deny the application of Strive Collegiate Academy due to the fact that their education plan only partially meets, their organizational plan does not meet, their business plan partially meets, and their evidence of capacity does not meet the requirements of the Charter Review Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Third recommended denial is the Tracy Darnell Agricultural Science and Technology, This is a proposed high school, grades 9 through 12, which grows to 400 at full enrollment, proposed in 2024. The review team did not find the application to meet standards in any of the review categories, educational, operational, or business plans, or overall organizational capacity. The established standard for approval requires that applications be rated as meeting or exceeding standards in all 4 categories of review in order to advance for further consideration. The review team's recommended objective reasons for denial are detailed in the recommendation report you have had to review, and we recommend that you rule by resolution to deny this application on the basis of this meeting and the review included in the full recommendation report.
Is there a motion?
Move that we accept the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee to deny the Tracy Darnell Agricultural Science and Technology Academy due to the fact that the educational plan, organizational plan, business plan, and evidence of capacity presented to the Charter Review Committee does not meet the Charter Review Committee's standards for recommended approval of the contract.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and properly second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Matt, add one thing before we move on to the next phase. We've just rejected 3 schools based on lack of organizational capacity and based on the recommendations of the Charter Review Panel. However, the Charter Review Panel was not charged with looking at fiscal impact, which we are also allowed to cite in these rejections according to this new rule that's being promulgated by the state board. So I would just recommend that should one of these schools choose to appeal the decision, that we might want to, before we communicate back up to the state board, the comprehensive set of reasons for the denial, we may want to route this process back through Mr. Henson's office and the budget team. The Charter Review Committee was not tasked and was not equipped to look at fiscal impact, but I do think fiscal impact ought to be a reason in all this because it's clear we can't afford everything that was submitted to us this year.
The only clarification I would add to that is that they have to come back to us before they can go to the state board, and that gives us an opportunity to wrap those in. But that would be consistent with what we've done with the others relative to the resolution. So,
fair enough. Thanks.
I think I think there's a little legal risk at the moment, but we would have to pick that up again.
Thank you.
Are you ready?
Yes, we're
All right,
ready.
so turning to our first recommendation for approval, these 2 applications call for the creation of small high schools that will allow 2 of our strong, diverse, and innovative middle schools to continue their college preparatory work through 12th grade. The first is Knowledge High School, which is proposed to operate a high school 9 through 12, serving 440 students at full enrollment, which it will reach in 2018, according to the proposal. Here, the review team found that the application meets or exceeds standards in all 4 categories of review. The academic benchmarks and the school's past history of performance as an achieving school, together with its innovative blended learning environment and commitment to diversity, are reflected in its current school and will be transparently reflected in the annual reporting that will be done under the academic performance framework, as well as the MNPS diversity management plan. The school plans to expand at its current location, continuing to serve a diverse population as it becomes a full 5 through 12 school. Further details regarding the application's strength are included in the full recommendation report that you've had to review. And we recommend that you rule by resolution to approve this application on the basis of this meeting and the review included in the full recommendation report.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee for the Knowledge Academy High School based on the fact that the academic plan design and capacity, operations plan and capacity, financial plan and capacity, portfolio review, performance record all meet the board and the Charter Review Committee's standards.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Pinkston?
Just one comment. Just want to point out that both of these schools, Knowledge Academies, and as well as STEM Prep, which will be the next one that we consider, this is not capacity that we would ordinarily be adding at this time. However, the resolution that was passed in November recognized that there may be value decisions that we want to make in situations where we wouldn't ordinarily be adding capacity. And the value decision that we're making tonight is, does it make sense to allow existing schools to continue to grow upward? And I personally believe it does. If the families are happy and the students are happy, let them expand upward. even if we wouldn't be adding new capacity. So I just want to make that point. These are not areas of town where we would ordinarily be adding seats, but we're potentially going to do it because we recognize the value of what these schools are doing.
And any other comments? I'll make one comment. Since Knowledge Academy is sitting in my district, I have seen spoken with and seen how this school has made a difference in the lives of the children who are there. And I truly believe that under the current leadership that the school will continue to flourish. I'm quite proud of the work that they've done, and so hopefully we'll see them continue that work with the students in that area. And we are seeing a lot of growth in Southeast Nashville, so I'm kind of excited about this. So, any other comments?
Will this help with some schools that are maybe over capacity in your area, in your district? No.
It's quite possible right now, and I will say to you that right now both of our high schools, both Cane Ridge and Antioch High School, are slated to be at capacity or over capacity in the upcoming year. So as this school comes online, it could in fact help with that continued growth that is expected in both of those high schools.
And this again is the first year, it begins with 2 grades and then adds, okay.
They've already been added. They have grown to 5 through 7 this year. There'll be a full 5 through 8 in the fall, and then transition to 9th the year following.
So it'll go 9 to 12 the following year?
Oh, no, I apologize. They will just transition their 8th grade class into the 9th grade and continue to grow a grade at a time.
1 grade at a time.
Misunderstood.
Any additional questions or discussion? Seeing none, we will go ahead and take the vote. Motion has been made and second. Is there, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I'm sorry. 1 opposed. Motion passes.
All right, the next one is STEM High School. This is a proposed 9 through 12 school serving 483 students at full enrollment, which it will also reach in 2018. The review team found the application meets or exceeds standards in all 4 categories of review. The academic benchmarks and the school's past history of performance as an excelling school, together with its innovative blended learning environment and commitment to diversity, are reflected in its current school and will be transparently reflected in annual reporting through the academic performance framework and the MNPS diversity management plan. STEM Prep Middle School was the first that we ever recommended for approval on the first round, several years ago, and both the school's board and leadership have proven strong and consistent partners in our work here at MNPS. In fact, just this morning, the academic officer from STEM joined our iZone leaders in discussing and planning for more effective interim assessments and data-driven instruction practices. The school plans to expand at its current location, continuing to serve a diverse population as it becomes a full 5 through 12 school. Further details regarding the application's strengths are included in the full recommendation report that you've had to review, and we recommend that you rule by resolution to approve this application on the basis of this meeting and the review included in the full recommendation report.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee for STEM Prep High School based on the fact that the academic plan, design and capacity, operations plan and capacity, fiscal plan and capacity, portfolio review performance record all meet the standard of the Board of Education and the Charter Review Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ms. Frog, 1 opposed. Motion passes.
All right, now we turn our attention to the schools that we're recommending for growth. First is Rocket Ship. Rocket Ship is a K-4 school that will serve 575 students at full enrollment, and that will occur in 2017. It actually begins with all the grades and grows in size to full capacity at 2017. The review team found that the application meets or exceeds standards in all 4 categories of review. Its academic standards and records of past performance, utilizing blended instruction, and the diversity plan both meet the district's high standards and will be transparently reflected in annual reporting through the academic performance framework and the MNPS diversity management plan. Both the diversity goals and identified need for greater elementary school capacity in the Glencliff cluster support the applicant's desire to locate there and serve the students in their area. Rocket Ship has demonstrated a strong desire to support the academic diversity goals of our district and be a good partner. And by growing all 5 grades together, the goal will help us meet those needs identified in our seat shortage faster in the process. Further details regarding the application strengths are also included in the recommendation report that you've had to review, and we recommend that you rule by resolution to approve this application on the basis of this meeting and the review included in the full recommendation report.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee to approve a charter for Rocket Ship, Tennessee, based on the fact that their academic plan and capacity, operations plan and capacity, physical plan and capacity, and portfolio review performance record meets the requirements of the Charter Review Committee and the goals of the Board of Education.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly second. Any discussion? Ms. Froeg. Okay, Ms. Froeg, and then I'll get to you, Ms. Spearing.
I've been voting no tonight because I really am not comfortable with the possible fiscal impact of expanding schools, any type of schools. But this particular application gave me pause, and I voted for the first school last year, but there's been a lot of information out about Rocket Ship nationwide, a lot of articles posted about it, and there's been a lot of criticism. I will say, universally, I've heard great things about the operator here. I've heard that he wants to be a partner and he's would be a positive addition. But there was a University of Oregon professor who released an academic brief about this school. It raised very serious questions about Rocket Ship as a chain. Raised questions about profit motives, student-teacher ratios, and experienced teachers and principals, underlying educational models for the school, such as using computers for replacement of teachers. I did ask about that last year. Narrowing the curriculum to math and reading only and teaching to the test, mandated federal remediation, and the list just kind of went on and on. But I think something that should give us pause is that apparently Rocket Ship nationally has rapidly declining scores in other states, and so I wondered if you had any response to that, number one. And then number two, the one thing that struck me about the applications, we've got a couple of these applications that have been approved for a school last year, and they're opening this year, but they don't have a track record. And we have this rule that prohibits the approval of multiple charters at once. I presume that rule was created as a safeguard to allow us to have time to review a new charter school's performance record before allowing its operator to open a second school. We have, these two schools that are proposing second schools without it having any track record. So it seems to me we're sort of violating the spirit of our own rule and creating a loophole to circumvent the system that's set up to ensure reliable charter performance. So I just wonder if you had a comment on either of those points.
Well, there's more than just two in there, but I will do my best. Regarding any rule about multiple charters at once, not even sure exactly to which you're referring, but that would be intended to keep us from, just approving 10 charters and just sort of wait and see what the leadership structure and the development is. And in this case, we have very personal contact with the people who will be running the schools, worked with them on locations and trying to make sure that they're prepared. We feel like we have that kind of connection, and it's an added benefit to have someone like Adam Nadeau on the team, who's been someone who's from Nashville. Of course, the founder of Rocket Ship was from Nashville and taught in MNPS schools. The track record in California is good and remains strong. There was some challenge in terms of full enrollment at the Milwaukee school, which contributed to some instability, definitely in the first year, that I was aware of, and I've read the whole report, and I've tried to run down all of that. Most of that is computers replacing teachers is a generic criticism of blended instruction. And, the point here is that they're able to increase the salary of teachers to create a leadership pipeline that prepares them to open new schools with people who've come through and learned the system there and who've done more actual kind of critical thinking oriented teaching and project oriented thinking, because the fundamentals, the rudiments, are handled more through the through the learning lab, which is essentially the same as the flipped classroom and other models for blended instruction that we're promoting throughout the district in our own schools. And so it's really I would characterize it as a more efficient use of resources and a better teaching job in some ways than it is certainly replacing teachers. The teachers, the relationships, the core of the student engagement is still at the heart of the model. Likewise, teaching to the test, that's a criticism, that kind of a tomato type criticism. I think you can't really teach to the test and have declining results. A lot of these things, when you actually investigate them and run them down, wind up becoming a lot weaker than what it shows at first blush. I think that's most of those, but I would just say in conclusion to that this is this particular proposal does address the seat shortage need in a quick order. And it was one of the things that we considered when talking about the first one. I think maybe Mr. Hayes even raised it at the time. Could we use a model that opened all its grades at once to help us to put a dent in some high growth areas in our need? And so that's kind of the spirit with which we pursued that. And they've worked collaboratively with us to get to that point. And so while this is another school, I feel it's one that we need and one that we can count on to deliver. And of course, we have transparent publication of their academic results so that we'll know right away, as well as their enrollment results, whether they're advancing our mission or whether they're not.
So, but they are not going to be using the computers for 2 hours a day as they have in the past?
I'm not sure the exact time, but they do use a lot of blended instruction. There's no question about it. That's part of how they restructure the salaries so they can pay teachers more and create leadership tracks. It's part of how they address better differentiation of instruction by the teachers, because the fundamentals are handled through the learning lab. And it's a fundamental assumption of most blended instruction.
Let me get to Ms. Faring, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Hayes.
So my understanding that there is, in terms of grade level, there's no phase-in approach. It's
Right. They recruit all K through 4 all at once, but they start with lower numbers in their grades and allow their grades to grow over time. So that's why the numbers grow over a couple of years. I think, full capacity in a couple of years, but the grades all begin year 1.
So it is a phase-in approach, it's just different.
Well, it's
not
normally
great.
when we talk about a phase-in, we'd be thinking about starting kindergarten and allowing that class to grow first, second, third, fourth, and what they do is start kindergarten through 4th, but they allow the size of those grades to grow up to full capacities. In that sense, it's a phase.
Mr. Hayes?
Thank you. Just wanted to, make a comment to one of your questions around the study that was issued in Milwaukee. I received the same email from somebody, where he was from, a random person sent an email. If you look at the other side of the story and care to do any research, the Economic Policy Institute, who wrote the brief, was a consortium of some of the largest labor unions in the country, including the AFL-CIO. The paper's been wildly discredited. I'd encourage you to reach out, maybe to some rocket ship folks, just for their response, and look at both sides, because it seems like there actually is a response. That email was concerning. I looked at it, and back to Google. When you Google it, you can find a response that talks about who it was, and that report actually had been discredited pretty widely.
Yeah, with just that report, there are a lot of articles there are a lot of articles out there. So, and I recognize there was a response from the school, and then I think a response from EPI, but.
The school leader here, and I don't know if you've met Mr. Nadeau. Alan spoke of him. I watched him teach. Granted, it's been 10 years when he was a district employee. An incredible school leader and teacher, who I think will do wonderful things for the kids in Davidson County. One of the best teachers I've ever seen in the classroom. And a Hume Frog grad.
Mr. Pinkston?
I share some of Ms. Froeg's concerns about the rocket ship track record elsewhere around the country. I think one of the things that they've been alleged of doing is taking budget surpluses in one market and using that to fund expansion in a different market in different states sometimes. So I think that, what I would suggest is that we just watch it closely. And I think this gets back to some of the very wise accountability and fiscal visibility ideas that Ms. Froeg is advancing in Governance Committee and the Charter Policy. We just need the right sets of controls in place so that we really are understanding what's happening fiscally in these schools. Now, all that said, I want to give rocket ship props. Of all of this crop of applicants this year, they're the only ones who literally put their hand up and said, hey, we'll do whatever you want. You want us to help manage growth? We're in. You want us to do conversions? We're in. We want to be a partner. And that's a breath of fresh air. That is something that has not happened in the time that I've been on the board. And I just want to say kudos, and we could use more of that in the future. So I'll be voting yes, just based on goodwill.
Any additional discussion? All right, we have a motion. It's been properly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? One opposed. Motion passes.
All right, the next application is Valor Collegiate Southeast. This application is a proposed K-8 school that will serve 1,035 students at full enrollment, which will occur in 2019. The school will reduce elementary overcrowding in the Glencliff cluster where they plan to locate and provide a continuous pathway from K-12 as students feed into the already approved high school. You approved that last year. The review team found that the application meets or exceeds standards in all 4 categories of review. The academic excellence that Todd Dixon and his team demonstrated in the charter management organization that he built prior to beginning Valor is really second to none. And the diversity plan for the school mirrors the purpose and execution of the diversity management plan adopted by MNPS. Valor has already executed its diversity goals in building its first class for the 5 through 12 school that will open this fall. It'll be a plurality school. Valor continues to demonstrate its commitment to partnership with the district. It's one of the most outspoken supporters of our achievement and diversity goals. It's responded quickly to complete plans for this K-8 school in response to our articulated need for greater elementary capacity in overcrowded and fast-growing areas. And I showed you how that stacked up on seat shortage and the need earlier in the presentation. Last year, we approved a business plan and enrollment goal that included the middle school grades in this K-8 application as part of the plan to fill the unique high school that they're planning to build that was also approved at that time. This K-8 application shows the organization's commitment to support the district by responding quickly and capitalizing on the existing business plan as a way to add exemplary elementary school capacity as quickly as the organization and its systems can be built. By growing both the middle grades as planned in last year's application and beginning to add elementary grades as soon as possible just a year later, Valor proposes to help us meet our identified growth needs and create pathways for families faster than the traditional grade-at-a-time process. Further details regarding the application's strengths are included in the full recommendation report that you have to review, and we recommend that you rule by resolution to approve this application on the basis of this meeting and the review included in the full recommendation report.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the Charter Review Committee's recommendation to approve the charter for Valor Collegiate Academy Southeast based on the fact that their educational plan, organizational plan, business plan, and evidence of capacity meets the Charter Review Committee standards and the standards of the Board of Education.
Second. Motion's been made and second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Pinkston?
All right, so I'm going to disagree with Mr. Coverstone on Dr. Coverstone, pardon me, on 2 issues here. First is this continual characterization of growth management or conversion as quote-unquote competitive priorities. If you go back and read what the board passed in its resolution, which was a complex motion, what we said was that these applicants shall do X or Y if they're going to be improved. Competitive priority suggests that it's optional, and it's just not the way the board spoke in November. So that's one issue. Second disagreement I've got is your characterization that this school meets that growth management priority. This I have no question that this operator has the ability to pull off a successful school. Integrity, a mile wide, indeed. But this school is a Trojan horse for a middle school. It would start in grade 5, which is not what the board said it wanted in that part of town. We said we need elementary capacity, which is where the acute need is. And starting with middle grades just doesn't really speak to the priority. So I would like to make a motion to amend Mr. Hayes' motion and say approve with the contingency that the school begin in grade K, which is where we need the capacity in the elementary levels.
Give me just a second here. Okay, there's a motion to amend the motion made by Mr. Hayes that states that this school will start in grade K. Is that correct? It's been properly seconded. Any discussion on the amended motion? Mr. Hayes?
I'm curious, so they've outlined a K-8 with a K starting in year 2 instead of year 1, is that right?
I believe so.
Mr. Coverstone?
Correct. The kindergarten and first grade would begin in 2016.
Instead of,
Both grades grow together so that it would complete its K-8 faster.
could they meet your requirement if they launched, and this is just philosophically speaking, could they meet your requirement if they launched a K with 1 child? Right, I mean, to the extent we're trying to modify an application, I think that seems like a difficult request for us to make a conditional approval based on launching a K. I don't know if that's true or not true, or what our ability is to approve conditionally.
The state board not too long ago remanded an application to us with contingencies attached to it, so I think there's precedent for attaching contingencies.
I would just point out the basis of our recommendation is the language in the resolution. The board will consider applications for new charter schools locating in cluster tiers in which capacity is projected to exceed 120% as of fall 2017 based on MNPS enrollment capacity report. This does that, and I showed how it increases the elementary capacity as well. So it's a 1-year difference.
It's adding capacity, middle grade capacity, which is not what the board said it needed or wanted in that part of town. What the board said it needed and wanted is elementary capacity.
Ms. Kim?
Capacity is an interesting question, because my understanding is that Valor, their current middle school, has a waiting list of 150 people. So 300 people applying for roughly 300 people applying for roughly 140 seats. Is this correct, Dr. Coverstone? So there's demand. So in that sense, there is a demand for the capacity, and therefore I'm inclined to, and they have a wonderful track record, one of the best operators in the state of California. And that's evident by the fact that there is a huge waiting list before they even open their doors for their first school, which indicates to me that, and they have expertise in this particular field, they plan for it, they're gunning for it, they're going to be well set up for it. I'm inclined then to approve based on the original application. No amendment.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have an amended motion on the table that we'll take first. And that is based on Mr. Hayes' motion that we add a contingency to approve based on the school opening. School is to begin in grade K. The motion's been made and properly second. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Wait a minute, what are we voting on?
We are voting on the amended motion.
Mr. Pinkston.
No, I know. I'm saying based on Mr. Hayes' original motion, there's a motion by Mr. Pinkston to amend that original motion. And that is to amend, his amendment is to open the school, that the school is to begin in grade K. Is that correct, Mr. Pinkston?
Correct.
All right. Motion's been made and properly second. All in favor of the amended motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hands. All opposed? Motion fails. Now we'll go back to the original motion, which was made by Mr. Hayes. And Mr. Hayes, would you repeat your motion, please?
I hereby move to approve the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee to approve the charter for Valor Collegiate Academy Southeast due to the fact that their educational plan, organizational plan, business plan, and evidence of capacity meets the requirements of the Charter Review Committee and the Board of Education.
The motion's made and properly seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
Okay, so we're going to make sure I have this right. Ms. Spearing, you opposed? Mr. Pinkston opposed?
Yes.
And Ms. Frog opposed? Okay, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And I will approve, so the motion passes. Motion passes.
All right, last one. It said 6:20 on the agenda, and behold. This is the recommendation for one charter management organization to convert an elementary school in target priority status beginning in 2015. Proposed operator is KIPP Academy. The review team found that the application met or exceeded standards in all 4 areas of review, and the academic track record of KIPP in North and East Nashville, along with identification of an accomplished school leader, offer strong confidence that they'll be able to lead a strong management conversion. At this point, we need only to approve the application for management conversion, and we will engage in formal identification and matching of the operator and the school once the academic performance framework and priority schools lists are available early this fall. We will then spend time engaging families and community members to ensure a strong match for the operators, and they'll begin to work with our existing school leadership to fashion a productive transition well in advance of the beginning of the management conversion in fall of 2015. Further details regarding the application's strength are included in the full recommendation report that you've had, and we recommend that you rule by resolution to approve this application on the basis of this meeting and the review included in the full recommendation report.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the recommendation of the Charter Review Committee to approve KIPP. Is there a longer school name than KIPP? Just KIPP. KIPP. Based on the fact that they meet or exceed the academic plan, design and capacity, operation plan and capacity, financial plan and capacity, portfolio review, performance record. I guess they meet or exceed all of those as required, as outlined by the Board of Education and by the Charter Review Committee.
Second. Motion's been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Ms. Rowe?
Actually going to identify the conversion school. Who's making that choice?
Dr. Register and the administration here.
And when they convert, they will convert one grade at a time, as all charters do. They will not take the entire population of that school.
That is the plan that they proposed here, yes.
Any additional discussion? Mr. Pinkston?
Okay, real quick. And so we talked earlier about operators who want to be a partner with the district, and I just want to call out this one as one that clearly wants to be a partner with the district. They have essentially broken from their business model to speak to our stated needs, and I want to say I think that's a great thing. You know, we've had a number of operators, including Strive, tell us, you know, what you say doesn't fit our business model. You need to bend to our business model. This is an operator who said, you know what, we want to be a partner. We're willing to rethink what we do and how we do it in order to meet the needs of this community. So kudos to them. I'm disappointed that this is doing this phased-in approach. I mean, my whole skepticism about the charter movement in general is that it's not ambitious enough. Going about reforming a system 100 kids at a time is just frankly not an efficient use of time. However, you know, if we could encourage them to go faster, I understand that they proposed a grade at a time, but if there's any way through the process to realize an acceleration, I would encourage that. But I support this one I just wish we were more ambitious.
Ms. Baring and then Dr. Gentry.
My concern again is with the, like Will, it's with the phased-in approach, and it's costing us more money and affecting our other schools when it's not a conversion, just coming in and taking over the school as is. So I think that's problematic. And when I read our resolution that we approved, that Will wrote for the deployment of charter schools, it was my understanding that a conversion was not one grade at a time. It was really a true conversion in my way of thinking. I just want to say a few more comments. We have a policy, executive expectation, EE 17, on charter schools. And it says that the director shall not allow contracts to be recommended or continued if fiscal jeopardy is a likely outcome. These things concern me when we're phasing in. We've closed 17% of our charter schools in the 2 years I've been on the board, either for low performance or allegations of fraud. And the taxpayers in my district want more oversight of charter schools, and this came out a little bit yesterday in our governance meeting. But since charter schools use public funds, they should be treated as public schools. More broadly, charter schools and their board should be publicly transparent in the following ways, and there are 6. A full list of each charter school's board members, their officers, their administrators, with their affiliations and contact information should be made available on their school website.
Ms. Baird, let me stop you for just 1 second. Can we reserve those comments until after this?
Yes,
because that
we can
is
do that.
actually not related to this. Yeah. Dr. Gentry.
Okay, so to the conversion thing, I do think I had the same expectation that it would be the entire school. But the other part of that is we wouldn't want anybody to take on something that they don't feel that they're going to be successful in doing. I guess
Move your mic down a little bit. Thank you.
So I guess, what I would like an understanding of is there a way to sort of help meet them halfway, so to speak? So what's going on with those that we don't move under the KIP umbrella until KIP has the capacity to assume more? So I think that's my first question is what are the initiatives that are going on to help close the gap or meet them halfway, if anything? And the second part goes to Will's point, that if future assessment analysis is done in conjunction with KIP, is that something that has to come back to us for approval? So if we've already approved them to be the operators, am I saying this right? To do the to take over the school, if they see in a couple of months, hey, we've crunched the numbers again, we looked at our capacity, we could probably take on 2 or 3 grades right out of the gate as opposed to just the 1. Is that something that needs to come back here, or does our vote to make them the conversion organization enough?
Okay, well, let me take those bottom up. I suppose you could give other instructions. I would hope that we would have that latitude to do that if it comes out better. Mm-hmm. We evaluated the plan as proposed and found they had the capacity to deliver on that plan, and we wouldn't let them go forward without being able to deliver on that. But I think you might need to instruct us if you wanted us to do differently. But I think that's all part of the matching process, the community involvement, the communication with the teachers who are there, working with the leadership that's there. And, we have some experience building a partnership at Cameron in doing exactly this, and it's bumpy.
Sure.
But it can be of great benefit, and I think we've learned some lessons that I've already started to have conversations with Randy Dowell and others at KIP about that I hope will move us in that direction, so that if we got to the point where we said, yeah, the capacity works, let's move more quickly, that we would be able to do that. So is that, I'm going to take the first one in just a second.
I just want to make sure that we're clear that once we approve them, if their strategy indicates that they can do more, it does not have to come back here for that. No.
And as to your other question, what about the others? I mean, it depends on that partnership and it depends on our investment. And, that's what we did at Cameron, was to stay invested in the students. That was, you recall from the very beginning, if we're going to do this, the last people we should forget, in my opinion, are the people who've been there and who have, experienced that low performance. We ought to do everything we can to turn around both schools at once. It's tough to turn around one school. It's tougher to turn around two schools at once, but there is potential for that collaboration to bear fruit, and I think we're starting to see that here at the end of the conversion process at Cameron, and I hope we can learn from those lessons and do well here as well. Even though, I agree with you, if it were a whole school plan, I think we'd feel more comfortable with that, except for the fact that they can't go beyond what they have the capacity to do. We wouldn't want them to do that.
Mr. Pinkston?
So following up on Dr. Gentry's comments, once the candidate conversion school is selected or determined by Dr. Register and you and the operator, does that then have to come back to the board? All right.
Any other comments?
I'm sure you would be notified as part of, the whole, what are we doing with our priority schools? That'll be part of, clearly important board communication, but I wouldn't think you'd have to vote on that, no.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion on this application? All right, let's take the vote. All in favor of, the motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed. Motion passes. And Ms. Spearing, I will come back to you for your comments.
Yes, so I was enumerating the needs of charter schools in order to be acceptable to the members in my district. Minutes from governing boards and board meetings, school policies, and information about staff should be available on their website. Charter schools should be fully compliant with the Tennessee open meetings and open record laws. Charter schools' financial documents should be publicly disclosed annually and on the school's website, including detailed information about the ways both public and private funds are utilized by the school and its management entities. Charter schools should be independently audited periodically, as we are, with audits published on the school websites. And all vendors or service contracts over $25,000 should be disclosed. No such contract should be allowed with any entity in which the school operator or any board member has any personal interest. And I think that if we had this in place, I would feel better about our charter schools.
Mr. Pinkston, you had some comments as well?
Yeah, I just do want to say that, again, I think that this process of articulating strategic priorities worked on balance. I mean, we asked, said what we wanted, and people brought us proposals that addressed the stated needs. I do think that this decision on Valor draws operators a roadmap in the future for how to circumvent this policy if we decide we want to use this approach going forward. They slipped one past the goalie, good for them, but if we do this in the future, we may want to be a little bit more defined about the process. So the main question I had, Dr. Coverstone, is this: will the charter agreements, particularly for these growth management schools, are the charter agreements actually going to reflect geographic boundaries for them that mirror the cluster in general, or kind of more specifically tailored to geographic areas where we really do have acute need, like Peregrine Mills, for example, which is going to be at 159% capacity by FY17? It doesn't really make a lot of sense for rocket ship to go at the far edge of the Glencliff cluster when the need is right there at I-24 and Harding Place. I mean, what can we do in the process of articulating the agreement to make sure that they really are helping us manage the growth that we have?
Yeah, we can require that. We'll have the address to finalize that agreement. We can require that address. And, rocket ship has identified some locations that, as you know, that are on the boundaries, and they're trying to find the place that serves best and meets the goals that we have because they want to cooperate. So I think we just need to work with them through that. But clearly the expectation is that those two schools under that priority will locate in the Glencliff or Overton cluster.
Mr. Hayes?
Just curious, your question, does transportation help that? So if they did want to locate on the edge to maybe meet diversity or because of facilities available, but they pledge to run a bus to 24 and Harding and Target, and I think about Brookmead, right, with Lead, and they bus people a pretty far distance just because of facility availability.
Yeah. I mean, I think getting at it through transportation and marketing targeted marketing are both, equivalent ways. But at the end of the day, I mean, we know that a lot of people, a lot of parents, for whatever reason, they're making decisions based on convenience. And so I think location matters.
Agree.
Any other comments? Ms. Shepherd?
I just want to say thank you to Dr. Coverstone and Carol Swan and all the teams that prepared this and put these together. I know it's a phenomenal lot of work, and I do appreciate all your work on this. You could tell they were very thoughtfully prepared.
Some of the review team members are here tonight, too.
Review team members, please stand up. Be recognized for your hard work and efforts. Oh, don't be shy. Come on. Well, Miss Lanier did it all by herself, apparently. Thank you, Dr. Coverstone.
Cool.
All right, we do not have a director's report tonight, so we'll move into committee reports. And first on the committee report is governance. Ms. Froeg?
Yes, we are trying to wrap up our full review of the policy governance, all of our policies. And we've had a few committee meetings. At the recent committee meetings, we have approved revisions to the following policies. We have revised E3, personal development, EE5, staff compensation, EE10, communication and counsel to the board, GP2, governing style, GP3, board job description, GP7, committees and appointments, EE3, treatment of parents, students, and citizens, and EE14, the district calendar. And all of those policies will go on our consent agenda for the July 8th meeting for the final vote. We had a meeting scheduled for July 7th at 7 a.m., which we have now canceled and rescheduled to August 9th at 9 a.m., which is a more reasonable hour, and that will be held at the Martin Center, and we are just going to meet until we are able to resolve the remaining policies. At that meeting, we intend to discuss BDR5, monitoring director performance, E2, academic achievement, EE12, instructional program, EE17, charter schools, GP8, our agenda planning, GP4, monitoring board governance process and board director relationship policies, and GP3, board job description. And our hope is to get all of these policies that we have reviewed fully voted in on August 12th so that we do not leave any remaining work for the new board to undertake. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Froeg. Mr. Pinkston, Budget and Finance.
Thank you. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, immediately before this meeting, we had a brief Budget and Finance Committee meeting to do two things. One is approve the revised Nutritional Services Fund projections for 2014-15, which basically accounted for this exciting shift to universal meals that's beginning to happen. So that was approved unanimously, the revised budget. And then also we approved a small budget amendment to our current fiscal year budget to account for some unexpected expenditures and revenue gains that we hadn't seen before. Our fiscal year ends in 6 days, actually, and beginning July 1, we will officially enter FY 2014-15 and put 13-14 in the rearview mirror. That's all I had to report.
Thank you, Mr. Pinkston. Any final comments from any board members? Ms. Froeg.
Being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.